So the second element is avoid the abundance trap. This is what I call the pitfall of the bright, shiny objects, right? This is the framework for saying no. It's about the gap between short-term feel-good doing and long-term strategy. But mostly it's about what not to do. I love this because abundance is a good thing, right? But abundance can also be a distraction. Don't we all have more opportunity than we can say yes to? Do you make decisions based on urgency or consciously based on importance? You need, and your organization needs, clarity about what is and what is not important. You need clarity about what to do and what not to do. Without it, you just spin your wheels, you work inefficiently, you take your scarce resources and you put them in the wrong places. The creation of a strategic profile will force you to make clarifying decisions. It will force you to instantiate your assumptions. It'll provide you with a structure for focus, and it will become really the backbone of your organization and your success. You must have a framework to be able to say no, or at least to prioritize those shiny new objects that are coming at you. I'm working with an organization that's recently garnered a great deal of publicity. The potential partners and the distribution avenues that they really dreamed about have all contacted them, and they're exhausted. They do not have the capacity to respond, to take advantage of everything that they're being offered. And because of this exhaustion and trying to respond, they get even more tired and less able to respond. And so now they're in this downward spiral. And that downward spiral is caused by abundance, right? So we created a strategic profile that allows them to prioritize the opportunities. It's also created a framework for them to acquire additional funding for expansion. Abundance is only an issue if you don't have a framework that allows you to prioritize and deal with all of the opportunities in front of you. Now the third element is align your stars, align your resources. This is about a gap between strategic intent and the execution or resource application. It isn't about marshaling your resources. I imagine that most of you are probably pretty good at marshaling. You're probably really good actually at getting all hands on deck, but it's one thing to get them on deck. It's another thing to get them all rowing at the same pace and in sync with one another in the same direction. So this tends to show up in organizations that are functioning in silos. Anybody out there experience that? Yeah, I have too. So what happens in a siloed organization is that each part of the organization maximizes their piece, but they don't optimize the whole organization's potential. I worked with an institution that was working with this issue. They had a fabulous CEO, great vision, and they needed to align their resources in order to move forward. So we tackled this by, of course, creating common goals and measures, but we also aligned the budget and the budget process to these goals in a way that was transparent and collaborative. What we did, we had a round-robin session where each leader from each department met with each other. They confirmed their goals, and then they asked the other department for what they needed to support the goals. Once that was accomplished, and everybody had an understanding about what was required, we had a prioritization session. And that's where the group leaders, they clarified and they resolved conflicts. And then, most importantly, we had a what's it really take to do this budget meeting. We had more conflict resolution, as you can imagine, but at the end, everybody was on the same page. This doesn't mean, by the way, that you shouldn't leave space for surprises and unknowns. It means that proactively planning and budgeting a percentage of your time for those things will help you. That'll vary depending on your specific situation, but it's always there. It was phenomenally successful. This was a college, and last year Atlantic Monthly ran a series of articles on the best colleges in America. In one of the articles, it began with this statement: if I were going to design a college today that I could attend, it would be Champlain College, the client. So this success came from a visionary leader, a visionary CEO like many of you, with aligned resources. So get your alignment between your strategic priorities and with each other. There's another area where misalignment often shows up, one that you're probably familiar with, and that's in M&A. In M&A, a lot of people get rewarded for making the deal. For making the deal work, not so much. My brother, he has this really great phrase. He says, we don't have an M&A department, we have an M&D department. And I'm like, okay, so little brother, what is M&D? And he said, it's merge and destroy. We acquire these companies and then we destroy the value that we acquired. How you combat that is by bringing together functional leaders and influencers and getting them aligned, discussing how to make the deal work, which systems to use, what's likely to get in the way, and how they can form relationships that will allow them to manage the inevitable conflicts that will come up. And in that way, you can save the value of your deal.